Hello everybody! Oh my god, it is great to be back in the cockpit. Listen folks, it has been raining for 3 weeks straight here in Pennsylvania. And this is the first chance I've had to get out to do any flying for almost a month. For those who haven't been following, I tore out the right landing gear on the last landing that I had. If you look at the last video, you'll see that. Really, all it took was taking her home and a little bit of hot melt and a little bit of TLC, and the landing gear went right back into the airframe. There was no damage to the retracts. Everything worked, so just glue it in and ready to go. And then the rain started, and it just never went away. Alright, so today's mission is we're going to try and do some range testing of the video gear. I'm pretty sure that the receiver will handle quite a lot of distance in its default configuration. I really wanted to play around with where the transmitter on the aircraft is located and how well that's going to work. So we're going to fly out to close to 2,000 feet away. I've got the high gain antenna that I've mounted to my shoulder pointing in the direction that I'm flying, and we're just going to go out, and on the next battery I'm going to choose a different direction. And we're also going to try and do a little bit of return to home testing. I've made some configuration changes. So one of them is I lowered the altitude of the return to home function to about 250 feet. So, we'll see how it handles that when I go into return to home mode. Other configuration changes that I've made. You may not have noticed it, I did, that the artificial horizon was a little bit slanted to the left when she was just sitting idle on the ground. And so I wanted to tweak that, and I put her on the table and I got some levels out, and I fiddled with it until I got it so that way I was satisfied that the artificial horizon should hopefully be as close to centered as I can make it at the moment. I'm going to have to interrupt myself here because I'm about to flip the return to home switch on. So here goes the return to home. Now, she was already in a bank when the return to home was engaged and started to do this dive down to the tree line. What I discovered is if I add control inputs like backstick pressure like I did here, then it actually takes those inputs and executes them. So I avoided the trees. The breaking up of the video footage there is the recording device, not my headset, because I have the high gain antenna. But anyway, I've got the return to home feature going. Now, if you notice, the distance from home is set at about 400 feet. Now, the wind's pushing it around a little bit, and so it's changing that. I'm thinking I might want to change that orbit distance to about 600 feet, because the idea here is if I ever lose video footage, I put the aircraft in return to home, it will do orbits around me while I go and get my driving glasses on, and then conceivably can do conceivably can line up a line of sight landing. And 400 feet away at 200 feet high might not be the optimum for setting up that kind of landing. Anyway, back to what I was saying before I had to go and interrupt myself. The last configuration change I made, and this is also the result of last flight, where I learned that 2500 milliamp hours is not the threshold for this battery in this airplane. What I've done is I've lowered the battery indicator that you'll see on the little lower left hand side. There's a little indicator there. That'll start flashing when it gets to the low threshold, and I've set that low threshold. It used to be 2500 milliamps. I've lowered the low threshold down to 2050 milliamps. My goal is to try and land the aircraft with 2000 milliamps and the battery indicator never flashes. And I've done a couple of flights, just, Chris from the future here. I've done a couple of flights, and yeah, it really, no problems. Landing it at 2000 milliamps seems to be the magic number for her. The plus side, though, is if I do have to execute a go-around, I'm pretty sure I can get to 2400 milliamps before the battery starts to tank on me, and that should be enough in most circumstances for at least one go-around, maybe two if things are getting a little bit dicey. So, alright, so here we go, and more of the flight. That had to be one of the uglier landings I've ever done. Of course, everything's still in good shape, all the parts, bits and pieces are still around, but when I get her back over to where I'm standing, one of the first things I'm going to do after turning off the camera recording is test the landing gear by sucking it up and kicking it out 3 times in a row. I'm doing that before I even do a battery swap. Gear checked out okay, the battery swap went fine, so here we are getting ready to do flight number 2. I've oriented myself about 80 degrees to the left, and I'm going to fly over a different parking lot than I normally fly over. But first, watch this launch. Oh my god, the climb rate of this aircraft. I'm telling you, it's got to be something that only fighter pilots really get to experience. I mean, just look at how she just jumps into the air. Anyway, this part of the parking lot over here is also normally abandoned, so I don't have to worry about accidentally crashing on any cars or anything like that. There's the mall, and my target is that white building at the far end of the parking lot. Ideally, I want to try and fly over that guy. I'm thinking that he's 2,000 feet away. We're going to find out today. Right now, I'm just doing a little orbit check, make sure I've got altitude and line of sight. The video breakup that you're seeing is mostly due to the fact that the omnidirectional antenna isn't picking it up as well. But I guarantee you, in my headset, with the high gain antenna that I'm using on my shoulder, that video is rock solid. So yeah, here we are. I'm flying around the far side of the movie theater, almost 2,000 feet, like 1,900 feet. And, you know, just flying back and forth between these two. If you take a look up here in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the amount of distance that the aircraft has flown so far this flight. It's really cool that it logs that for me. I've watched it a couple of times, and this thing can fly like 5 miles in 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes of flying time. So I always thought that was really cool. Something else that I've been noticing as I'm watching the videos here doing post-production, and that is the actual airspeed here on the left. That is from the pitot tube that is mounted on the wing. Whenever I look left, you can see the little pitot tube sticking out. Down here on the lower right is the ground speed, and that ground speed is actually taken from the GPS unit that comes with the OSD module. And I'm noticing that there is a delta between the airspeed and the ground speed. Now, normally I would just throw that up to, hey, this is, you're flying into the wind, so your airspeed's 46 miles an hour and your ground speed's, less than that. Or you're flying with the wind, so your airspeed's 46 miles an hour and your ground speed's like 50 miles an hour. But what I noticed is that the airspeed and the ground speed, the airspeed's always slower. So it's making me wonder whether or not there's some kind of problem with the pitot tube picking up the air pressure and communicating it all the way down to the sensor, which is in the body of the aircraft. Nice little aerobatics. I'm having some fun here. Yeah, today was just really having a blast, just getting out, testing out the range, flying far away. staying under the 400 feet altitude limit. We're still trying to do that, but having as much fun as I can. I mean, I did that little dive right there, and you can see I picked up quite a bit of ground speed. I also heard a guy that was walking over to me, so I kind of flew out over here to check and see who it was, and to make sure if the person comes and walks up that they know that I'm flying an airplane. And well, the video recorder that you're seeing right now actually has a display. It's on a little tripod, and normally when I have somebody walk up like this, they'll just I'll be like, hey, come on over here, check out the video, you can watch it and be my little spotter. Everybody always finds it terribly interesting. Getting spotters has never been a problem. People see the fact that they can see the aircraft from the pilot's point of view. It usually gets a lot of interest. You can see some of my other videos. I've had all kinds of folks show up right here at this particular mall where I fly out of, and they're always more than happy to check it out and chat with me. And this is me trying to do a upside down flight and actually looking up in the headset. So since I have pan and tilt, whereas with the Apprentice I never had tilt, I'm trying to do the flying upside down and actually looking down at the ground thing. It's really cool. Having a lot of fun with it. I can't wait until we get the sorry about that, I had to cut the recording short. My air conditioning system started up and it sounds like a dang jet engine spooling up. Anyway, oh, wait, that's right. Look at this, I'm about to do a knife edge. This is my first attempt at a knife edge in this aircraft. Anyway, what I was going to say is I can't wait until I get the cockpit glass back in place. The clear plastic bubble that ships with the aircraft, I pulled it off. It's not optically clear glass. It's absolutely horrible. And right now I'm going through the process of cutting it out and replacing it with plastic that is actually optically clear. Pretty much the same stuff you use on your iPad or iPhone as a screen protector. So anyway, this flight's just about over. I think we're going to set up for a landing in just a minute. I'm going to go sterile and talk to you when I'm on the ground. Considering how high I started that approach and how many S-turns I had to do while on final just to make the runway, all in all, not a bad landing. It was butter smooth, all the bits and pieces are still in place, and all it takes is a battery swap to get her back in the air again. What can I say? That's a successful flight, and that's a really good day. Alright guys, this is going to about do it for me. May your skies always be blue, your batteries always be charged. I'll see you at the field. Encrypt out.